We are back with another live episode of Bully Ball on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Jason Aponte, joined as always by Stephanie Sanchez. Stephanie, what a draft, huh? I mean, we're in right now in the era of diss records. Obviously, Kendrick Lamar just responded to Drake, and if you guys aren't keeping up with that, there's a lot of rap beef going on. But in Drake's diss, he tells Metro Boomin to shut his ass up and make some drums. It felt like 49er fans were telling Colin John, shut your ass up and draft some linemen.
It did, but they did, right? They did. So hopefully the 49ers put out their own sneak diss to the 49er fans. No, not actually. But yeah, Jay, I am feeling euphoric today. I'm excited to talk about the draft with you, and yeah, I'm pumped about it. Let's get to it.
So yeah, obviously the emphasis and a lot of fans and when you look at mock drafts and everything, kind of the way that people look at team needs, everyone says offensive lineman, offensive lineman, offensive lineman. Okay. I think the 49ers felt that way as well too. But I think the 49ers went a different way in figuring out how to improve the line. And I want you guys to walk with me a little bit on this one because it's going to sound a little bit out there, right? I want to explain that in this draft, there are a few things that jumped out at me. One, Kyle Shanahan was absolutely frustrated with the fact that his receivers couldn't get separation in the Super Bowl, man to man, right? You have a guy that needs to beat the person right in front of him and get open. Brock Purdy can't throw the ball to people who aren't open. That's one. Two, offensive line is threefold. It is the quarterback recognizing when to get the ball out because even the best offensive lines, you still can't sit there and hold the ball because you have a good offensive line. You still got to get the ball out on time. That's the first part. The second part is the people that are separating, getting open so the ball can be thrown. And then third is the offensive line. All three of those things need to work in tandem in pass protection. All three. Kyle Shanahan sees that his separators aren't separating, right? It's just Brandon Ayuk essentially. Some of those guys are getting locked up. So you want offensive linemen, I get it. But this draft right now shifts the philosophy. And I think the biggest thing that I took away from this stuff, and I'll let you go, this is a full moment of turning this thing right over to Brock Purdy. We trust you. We know that you can operate this offense. We know that you know where to go with the football. Now we're going to get you separators. We're going to get you separators, guys who can get open, and guys who can make this offense more explosive. More explosive. And on the other side, the 49ers did not draft one defensive lineman. They drafted a corner and a safety. Uh-oh, Steph. Weren't we saying all off season that it seemed like the 49ers were about to start prioritizing coverage because they realized that their way of doing things defensive line wise is completely different, and now it looks better this way? Steph, go. I know I just spoke for a bunch, but go. Please tell me your thoughts on this draft class.
Yeah, I definitely think there were some underlying themes to this draft, and one of the ones that pops out, as you mentioned, separation, right? And in two of the receivers that they got, speed and separation definitely seemed like a tone that they wanted to set with two of those guys. And also, one thing that kind of struck me as well was Kyle Shanahan saying they can both run all the routes. That's important too, because it's not just about being a one trick pony. Talking to you, Danny Gray, you got to be able to have more value to this team. And you want to know why, Jay? It's because this team is so deep. Like, that's really the only way you're going to be able to have a chance at making an impact on this team. Is you better add some value, because we got our starters at least for 2024, but after that you better be ready to go. So that was one of the themes I saw. Obviously, speed as a whole. You look at the RES scores for most of the guys they drafted, pretty high, and some in the 9.9s, right? So I think that right there, as we have seen in the past with this team, athleticism really big, especially with offensive linemen. And then speed, speed, speed. Isaac Guerendo, obviously, that one tells you right there. They want to get speed back to the backfield. And I think Guerendo is going to be that home run threat that they've been missing since Raheem Mostert, right? So, and then the other theme that I saw in this draft was experience. No develop, oh my God, no developmental, guys. That was hard to say.
Hmm.
That is good. That is good because three drafts, they've kind of pissed away some picks because a lot of them were guys that were had tools, but they're raw. And like we were talking about it in the last few shows, right? I don't know if the 49ers have the time to, get those guys up to speed. I don't know if they have the patience to get those guys up to speed. Well, they got experience in this draft, guys who I think are ready to make an impact right away, whether it's on special teams, whether it's being an immediate backup, not buried down the depth chart because you can't trust them
Hmm.
to get on the field. So I think that's what's exciting about this draft and one. I don't feel like I had to really convince myself of any of these picks. Thank you, John. Thank you, Kyle. Because in the
Hmm.
past, man, we were really doing some mental gymnastics to try to make it make sense. And I'm not gonna lie about that. I think we all we all tried to put the pieces and see the vision. But for some guys, even today, some of those picks didn't make sense. In this draft, I think I see the vision for all of these players, and that makes me really excited about this entire class.
Oh, baby. Let's start at the beginning. So the
Let's
Ricky
go.
Pearsall pick comes in at 31, right? And everyone is kind of thrown off because in the draft room, when I'm in there, those picks were coming out 2 minutes earlier in the draft room. And it came out that it was Cooper DeJean. And we all kind of rejoiced, like, oh, wow, our star role guy. And then, nope, Ricky Pearsall's the pick. Now, I think the initial reaction to that was a little bit of okey doke, and it was a little bit of sticker shock because you had already prepared yourself for Cooper DeJean. You got excited for a few seconds, and then you see this, and then it kind of changes. But I do have some very good evidence, which Rob should put up on the screen right now, as to what I was talking about in terms of separators and what they're looking for. This right here is reception perception by Matt Harmon. I love his work, but this is exactly what he does well. If you look on the right, you see success by route. 9 routes, only 47.4% of the time he ran those. So, no, I'm sorry. That's your success per route. So 47.4 on 9 routes. Corner route 65.4, out 77.8, dig 88.6, post 74.1, curl 83.0, comeback 57.1, flat. All these other ones, all you see is green. All you see is green. When I see someone who has a success by route run, corner, out, dig, post, curl, slant, that shows me that he's a very good route runner. And he's someone who can get himself open. Steph, when you look at this and we thought that a wide receiver was going to be in the fold, and a lot of 49er fans would have been fine with a wide receiver at 31, they just didn't think it was going to be Ricky Pearsall. And for the people that say that this is a huge reach, if people say that this is a huge reach, he was in the 40s on many top 40 prospect boards. 31, 40, where's the reach? Because there's no way that 40, if you set around in the second round, that he was going to be available. So it's not a reach. Now let's talk about this a little bit further. It's clear that the big three are going to be back, right? Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. All three of those guys are getting one more shot this year. Makes sense. Feels like we're getting prepared for a divorce of some kind. If I had to guess, it would be Deebo Samuel. If I had to even further guess, it might be Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings. But I want to throw something at 49er fans real quick. I know we all love Deebo Samuel, but we have to prepare ourselves for the fact that Deebo Samuel most likely is going to miss a game or two or three. When he misses a game or two or three, and it's Ray McLeod that's got to step in, or it's Chris Conley that's got to step in, we don't feel too good about that, right? So now you're looking at Ricky Pearsall and obviously Jacob Cowing on the back end, not only being for the future, but being depth for this team now. So when you look at this team and you look at the way that this is being built, you are looking at a team that is getting themselves separators, setting themselves up for the future. And if, God forbid, any of these receivers miss any games, you feel like the offense isn't in a complete rut where they can't do anything correctly. And that's more about this pick. And to Steph's point, about the experience that these guys have. I love this Ricky Pearsall pick. And it didn't take me long to put myself in a position, like you said, to understand it. 49er fans wanted a wide receiver at 31. It just wasn't the guy that you wanted, but understand the fit and understand that this is exactly a Kyle pick and somebody who works perfectly.
And I'll say this, I think a lot of fans, and sometimes I do it too, so like it's fine, but like sometimes fans' perception of when a guy is available too early or not is mock drafts. Like this guy was going in the second round in the mock drafts. This
Right.
was a
Right.
crazy reach. Mock drafts are not real. They're fun as an exercise, but they aren't real, and they aren't the
Steph.
actual consensus of NFL teams. And yes, I agree with you, Jay. I don't think Pearsall would have been there past pick
No.
40. So yeah, I mean, I think this makes sense. And if you look at the fit, again, I see the vision. I mean, we talk about fit for a team is so important for a player and vice versa. So yes, maybe the 49ers could have gotten another receiver there. Would he have been a good fit for the 49ers and what they want to do going forward? Perhaps not. And then, a couple years down the line, we're like, oh man, maybe they should have gotten this guy. So we do this as fans, and sometimes even before we've seen the tape on said player, we're already judging the player just based on the perception of where they thought they should go. All right. So that's part of the issue right there. And then so when I saw Pearsall, like where he got picked mattered less and less. I don't care he got picked at 31. I see the vision. Yes, he can create separation. If he had a better quarterback, if he was in a better offense, you bet your ass he would be like in the 20s of these receivers available in the first round. So yeah, I definitely think this was a great pick for the 49ers. And I think what you said hit the nail on the head that if Debo misses any time, you're not feeling too bad about it. I would actually be excited to see what Ricky Pearsall does. He has an inside outside versatility. Some people think with his size, he's probably more of a slot guy. I would refute that right there. I think he could be an outside guy just as easily. Again, like he gets open naturally. He's not going to be like a contested catch kind of guy due to his size, but he will try to make some crazy grabs. Like we probably saw a couple one-handed grabs when you were watching him, right? So I think he is a QB's favorite receiver. Like that's the kind of receiver that he is. No injury issues from what I saw. Like I don't think he missed any games in college as well. So that just goes into the reliability factor. He had a pretty low drop rate as well. So there's just a lot for Brock to work with, even if Debo's out, even if Ayuk is out, even if Juwan Jennings is out. I mean, any one of those guys in any given game, Ricky Pearsall is going to be able to come in and, not miss a beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And he can at least be an X. He took 51.4% of his snaps from the slot last season. I want to throw out some other things about Ricky Pearsall. 44.1% of his routes were against man. He had a 75.8 success rate. That's for the people that say that Ricky can't beat man coverage. 55.9% of his routes were against zone. 82.2 success rate. That shows smarts and being able to find the spots that you need to beat in zones. Press, 11% of his routes, 67.7% success rate. It's a little bit closer to the average mean, but I think Steph is absolutely right. When you look at production and you say, well, why did he have only this amount of catches? The Florida quarterback is pretty bad. He's very bad. Like, he's not good. Like, honestly,
It
like
was
when
it
you're
was
watching this,
frustrating to watch.
it's very frustrating to watch. I couldn't imagine being Ricky Pearsall, being wide open and seeing the ball thrown at your feet or over your head. Like, these are the things that you need to contextualize without looking straight at the box score. Hate to say it, but play the Rich Madrid clip. Watch the damn tape, man. It's right there. It's literally over. It's over his head. It's behind him. And he's making some of these catches look way more difficult than they need to be. With a quarterback like
Yeah.
Brock who can get the ball in space in the right way and put it in there, you're gonna find that you're gonna love this pick more and more. And one more thing I want to dispute because I've seen it far too long, and I understand you are a little bit, I guess, hurt by it, PTSD. In no shape, form, or fashion is Ricky Pearsall Dante Pettis. Nothing
not
about their
even
games are
not even
alike and
close.
not even close. Like,
Not
I
even
don't want to hear
close.
that. If you say that you think he's Dante Pettis 2.0, I will just assume you haven't watched one bit of his tape. There is nothing about him that is Dante Pettis. If you feel upset because of Kyle going for Dante and ending up in the doghouse and all that stuff, that's fine. But please do not throw that comparison out there because not only is it disingenuous, it's factually incorrect.
Cook. Cook. Yeah, I've seen a number of people say that, and I'm not seeing that at all. One bit. But I mean, can we talk about the next guy now? We
Yeah.
got Renardo Green. And look,
Yeah.
this one was an interesting pick because there was a bit of a run on tackles before this pick for the 49ers, and I wholeheartedly do believe that the 49ers, who they wanted, went right before, and that was Roger
Yep.
Rosengarten. As
100% agree.
we kind of expected would happen. Dude, we saw the run on tackles happening, and me and Rob were live when this was happening. So I was like, someone's going to move up and jump
Mhm.
the 49ers because everyone knows or at least believes that the 49ers needed a tackle. And so that was a sweet spot to get it. And the 49ers didn't move up, but who did move up? Oh, it was well, no one moved up in that round, but
Mm-mm.
Ravens picked up Roger Rosengarten
Yes.
before. I thought the
Yes.
Chiefs were going to move up actually, but they ended up
Yeah.
moving up next round. Yeah, so that kind of felt like obviously they had to think that one through when they got on the clock. They had to think about it, and they ended up getting the guy that I actually think was a good fit for the
Mhm.
49ers because I think they do need corner, right? So I think it ended up working out in the grand scheme of things, and we'll talk about the next guy they got in the third round that kind of made everything feel okay. But Ronaldo Green, I was excited about this one. Shout out Brad, man. Brad Graham, the
He's
SF
all over it.
Niners, like he did put me on to Renardo Green, and posting about him like a few weeks in the run up to the draft. And so when Brad likes guys, I pay attention, I listen. And
Mhm.
so after seeing this pick two, getting to watch him press man, obviously his specialty. When he can dictate his space, that's when he's best. He can create his own leverage. And what I like about him too, he can get receivers tight along the sideline. He'll force a quarterback to make a really tough throw or the receiver to make a really tough catch. Even if he catches it, he could push the receiver out of bounds. That's something I saw with him a number of times. Um, and I mean, the fact that he played in the SEC, he has experience with guys who are now in the NFL, right? Malik
Mhm.
Neighbors, he put on a masterclass against Neighbors. And so I think that's definitely impressive. He's got excellent awareness. He could be reliable in run support, pretty good tackler as well. And experience with once again, fifth year senior, right? So I like this pick. I mean, beyond 2024, like we've been saying, corner is a huge need for this team. Yeah, it's very
Mhm.
very deep for 2024, which is great. We probably are just few months removed from seeing Samuel Womack, seeing Ambry Thomas on this roster. But
Mhm.
Bernardo Green, like I think he could be a starter in 2025.
Well, let's do the whole Roger Rosengarten Kingsley thing because Kingsley Suyamata was somebody that everybody's mocking to the 49ers, right? And I 100% agree with you. Roger Rosengarten was the pick. Now, when people complain and they say, well, why didn't the 49ers ask the Ravens to move up? Who says that they didn't? It takes two to
Yeah.
tango. And if they ask the Ravens to move up because they're afraid that Rosengarten is going to go there and the Ravens say, nah, that's our guy, what do you want the 49ers to do? And I know that a lot of people wanted Kingsley. Maybe, just maybe. And you know how I know this is true? Because they traded with the Chiefs and let them get Kingsley. If they wanted Kingsley, they would have taken him.
Yeah.
They didn't. So it's clear that as much as 49er fans mocked him there, thought that he was a fit, the 49ers didn't believe that. So again, back to the mock draft things. Are we drafting the mocks or are the drafts mocking us? Because it's insane that we're all sitting here like Kingsley is a fit. And this. And the 49ers said, nah, we don't want him. We wanted Rosengarten. And then they went to their next
Yeah.
best player. Now, regarding Bernardo, again, press man, Malik Neighbors, obviously you have that one. He only allowed the most yards that he allowed in one game last season, 48 yards against Pittsburgh. That's it. Now, when you're looking at the way that this team is built, obviously we understand that they're trying to move with Mooney. They want to keep Lenore inside. Renato's your best bet probably to be outside. I do believe that they want to give Darrell Luter at least a look. I do believe
Right.
that. I do believe that they want to give him an entire offseason and give him a look. Samuel Womack, Ambry Thomas, you're on the clock. And you're about to be on the outside looking in eventually, right? Like, if they were so confident in those guys, they're not going to go ahead and make a move like this. Now, again, we talk about immediate needs, best player available. but there's something about him in these man situations that are just better, right? And he's faced premium competition and he's been great. Run support, all of those things that you mentioned, great. I will talk about concerns, things that I would say that he needs to work on. One, the grabbing at the top of the routes. That's something that can come into play in the NFL. If you start getting penalized, it can start to get in your head. You can start to lose a little bit of confidence. That's one thing that I want to see. And two, obviously something that a lot of cornerbacks struggle with, fade routes, balls thrown up over his head. Is it going to be an issue? Does he have the awareness to turn his head at the right time? Those are two things that I need to see him improve on. Everything else, the tenacity, being able to close in space, being able to stay in phase with the wide receivers, that's all the stuff that Renardo has. But we will say this right now in terms of right now, again, it feels like a philosophy change is coming. Corners, secondary being prioritized. No defensive linemen in this draft. Separators, weapons. Now we're turning this thing over to Brock Purdy. This feels like when I said that this was the most important draft of their regime, it does feel like that for two reasons. One, trying to keep the continuity of winning, and two, showing that you're going to be able to adapt and not do the same things over and over in the draft. Regardless of whether this draft works out one way or another, you still have to be able to look at this team and say, they are trying something completely different because obviously whatever they're doing has sustained a level of success that is not good enough because they still haven't finished the job. And now they're looking at the way the Super Bowl went, coverage, separators. We need to figure this out now, and they're going for that. That's why I have such a hard time with anybody who has a problem with this draft, because there's so many good things to like about it, and it's very much right in front of your face what they're trying to do. It's not some sneak attack. It's not something that they're trying to do that is completely off the board. It's something that a lot of people complained about regardless, and now they're addressing it. And because it wasn't 11 O linemen that were drafted, 10 O linemen that were drafted, some people have an issue with it. I see the vision. It's all there right here. And we're only on pick 2 right now. We're only on pick 2. There's a lot more to go through. This is going to be a great show because the theme of it is, did the 49ers get better this offseason? I've got to take, and we're going to go through all the additions and everything, but I see the vision for this draft. I see it. It's crazy to me that people would say that this draft was underwhelming or you didn't like it. Obviously, if the 49ers wanted Kingsley, they would have drafted him. That's it. They were so fine with letting him go. They let the Chiefs go up and they took 2 extra picks in the back end. That's how much they valued Kingsley. Just because we did doesn't mean that they don't. And just because he's a lineman doesn't mean that he needs to be drafted. You still have to hit on the lineman. You still have to hit on the lineman. The lineman still has to be good. So we're going to find out real quick in about a year or two whether this draft class is going to bear the fruits of this new thought process.
And speaking of linemen, the 49ers did take a lineman in the 3rd round with Dominic Pooney out of Kansas. I did really like this pick because I think even for me there was a little bit of panic of, oh god, like they didn't get Rosengarten when they wanted him. What are they going to do now kind of thing. And again, it was a run on tackles that was happening. There was a lot of offensive linemen that went between that pick and this pick here, which is probably why the 49ers felt like they needed to move up for Pooney as well. But I think all those things considered, having missed on the guy that you wanted, I think this is a great plan B right here. This is a great one. I mean, this guy did not allow a sack in 2 seasons at Kansas. Yep. Is that good? Is that good? That'll do. That'll do for this team and this fan base. That's the kind of thing that for fans, they can latch on to that, and that's something that will make them feel excited about Pooney, right? And as they should be. I think he uses his hands great to counter and be able to gain control. I think he's solid, man. I think he'll be able to compete with Feliciano right away. Now, I don't know if he'll beat him out, right, in camp. I don't know. I think 49ers like to lean on experience when it comes to their offensive linemen, but I think it'll be an interesting battle. I'll just say that. And I think he's going to be able to start right away next season because you have Aaron Banks and Feliciano and Spencer Burford, who's not it, at the guard spots. And so Pooney has a direct line to be able to get one of those spots going forward. Now, again, I know it's not tackle, right? It's not what everyone wanted. I wholeheartedly also think that the 49ers aren't low on Colin McKivitz like fans are.
Oh, they
And
love him.
then maybe, yeah, and
They love
maybe
him.
if there was a better right guard next to Colton McKivitz, it'd probably do him some favors too. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like sometimes those things do go hand in hand.
Mhm.
And then also, like I think the vision too is maybe in the future he could even be a center. Like
Yeah.
he could definitely play either of the interior spots. So I like this pick.
Yeah.
For me, this made everything feel that much better. And in the first three picks, I think they addressed the three biggest needs. I don't know if they went into the draft like thinking these are the three positions we have to address with our first three picks. It just worked out that way, and I think it worked out great.
The funny thing is each pick after the first pick makes the one before it feel better. And I don't know how to explain it. It's when you look at the tandem of the three picks, you look at it and you say, "Well, that's why." Oh, and that's why.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And look at that. You addressed all three picks. This is what we're talking about with boards. You let the board play itself out, and if you do your proper evaluations, you can find the players that you need to find. And that's what you if you just did the Ricky Pearsall pick at 31 alone, and obviously we saw on the board was like Kool-Aid McKinstry and a bunch of guys. Obviously, you're gonna sit there and say, "What are they doing?" And then they double back for a cornerback in the second round. Oh, okay. So corner and wide receiver. Wait, they need offensive
Mhm.
line. Oh, wait, offensive line, corner, wide receiver. Oh my goodness. In three picks, they did it. It's so crazy that all of each pick makes you feel better about the one that's previous, and all three of them together make a ton of sense. Imagine that. Shout out to Ja Cruz for the super chat. We're going to see Purdy cook with his weapons, and Pooney loved the pick. Yeah, I agree with you, Steph. Offensive tackle, played guard the season before, no sacks allowed, over 800 snaps at left guard, 700 at tackle. Definitely feels like, in my opinion, the center of the future, in which they have been searching for since Weston Richburg. And that's really when the team was really efficient. Obviously, they didn't have the weapons that they have now, and they can do some different things. But when you're looking at the way that Pooney is built, he can have experience at guard. I'll tell you this, there is a chance for him to start. Spencer Burford started right away. Obviously, if Pooney goes into training camp and he kicks ass, I guarantee you that Kyle's not just going to
Oh yeah.
say, you're not going to play. But I do believe that if I was making a guess today on April 30th, I do believe you see Feliciano at right guard. Perhaps this is crazy for people to understand. Perhaps Colton McKivitz gets a little bit better, just a little bit better. Like maybe he improves. Is that on the board? Is that even possible for anybody to like put in their mind? Is that possible at all? Aaron Banks is your starter. Obviously, you're going to bring Brendel back, who's a little bit more of a concern than I think a lot of people are leading on, especially down the stretch. And then Trent, right? But when we're looking at this team and we're looking at the offensive linemen, you have guys that are going to be like swing tackles and guys who can step in like the almost like the Brunskill role. You have guys like that, and they still have enough on offensive line to make a deep run. If this quarterback continues to improve and play the way that he has, and you have all these weapons, and now you've added more depth in the wide receiver room, again, the defense is going to take another step up, actually, because we all thought about, well, Steve Wilkes what is he doing? Well, now Sorensen and Brandon Staley are going to prioritize coverage. You're going to get Hufanga back in some capacity. Malik Mustafa is the next guy that we're going to talk about. You have both of these corners that you really enjoy in terms of Lenore and Ward. And then you have this defensive line that should do better, because we all know that Wilkes had problems scheming things up for those guys and getting them in space. Again, there are ways to look at this that are right there in front of your face. And this draft is great. It's great so far for me. If you look at one pick and just put that in a vacuum, you may get disappointed. But when you look at these three picks in tandem, it all makes sense because they're all addressing something, right? And Marcus says, this man is speaking from my soul right now. I'm seriously struggling to find the logic most of our other content creators are putting out there. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But we are under a little bit of a time crunch, Steph. So we got to move a little bit quicker when it comes to where we're going, right? So obviously that's the third pick. Your fourth pick is, if I'm not mistaken, is Malik Mustafa, safety from Wake Forest. Now, this one is something that a lot of people have been asking under Brandon Staley in his game plan, because it's obviously going to be Nick Sorensen who's calling the plays. What is Malik Mustafa? Malik Mustafa is your Jimmy Ward star role type player. Down in the box against somebody in the slot. Up top, he can actually play single high, I believe. Can close, is a dog in run defense. This is what they're looking for right there in that position. Malik Mustafa is your new Jimmy Ward. Just happens to be in the fourth round.
I love this pick. Like the more I watched him, the more excited I got about him being able to make an immediate impact. And I think he'll make an immediate impact on special teams first. And I'm excited about that because I think it's going to be able to highlight everything that he does well. You talk about him being able to come downhill. He's super quick and aggressive with that. He has a sideline to sideline speed too. He's so good working through traffic. It reminds me of like target acquired. Like he's not looking at anything else. He doesn't care who's in front of him. He will weave through and make the tackle. And he's a great tackler, by the way. He puts on a clinic with tackling. He will always wrap up. And so I think, given all those things that I just mentioned, like special teams, I think is where he's going to be able to make an impact right away. I guess, like, yeah, you mentioned it, Jay, as far as him being able to be the star guy on this defense. I could definitely see that. As far as like Talanoa Hufanga, right? Like where does he now fit in with all this too? Obviously, this is a contract year for Hufanga, and so maybe this tells you a little bit about what the 49ers think about the safety position going forward and what they want to do with it. But Mustafa definitely has a lot of versatility in where you can line him up. In the secondary. I believe he even mentioned that at Wake, like he even played some nickel. I don't know if the 49ers would experiment with him there, but it just goes to show that he has that experience, he has that versatility. So definitely something that I'm excited about. And again, I think he's going to be able to get on the field right away, be a fan favorite on special teams. He's a hard hitter too. Like he will make his presence known. You will notice him. And so look out for him this season on special teams.
Love it. Honestly, this is again for the future and for a role that they've been trying to fill. Again, the Jimmy Ward role of kind of just do it all, right? Like stick in run defense. If you have to guard a linebacker on the inside, if you have to play up top, all of those things are absolutely true about Malik Mustafa. Let's get to the pick that really, really, really gets me excited, honestly. And it's obviously something that was going to be met with a lot of pushback because of the position. Isaac Guerrero. Now, spent some time at the NFL Combine. Someone runs the fastest 40 for his for his weight. The only other person that's run as fast a 40 at that weight, his name, DK Metcalf. 9.99
It's
RAS score.
crazy.
9.99 RAS score. A guy who, when you open up a hole, he's going to take it and go. One thing that everyone is sleeping on: pass pro. A dog in pass pro and on passing downs can be in there, and you can continue to run the same offense that you would run with Christian McCaffrey. If you look at it, and this is no disrespect to Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, when Elijah Mitchell's on the field, there's no threat of throwing the football to him in the backfield. Like none at all, right? Um, if you look at when JP Mason's on the field, there's no threat to throw the football to him out of the backfield, right? I think they value Mason much more on special teams. Don't ask me why, but that's just the sense that I get because they refuse to put him on the field as much. But this feels like a move in which, again, Anthony Lynn said this while he was here. We need all these guys to have the same skill set as Christian McCaffrey because it keeps Kyle in a rhythm and it keeps offenses honest. And Isaac is a guy like that. He really is, man. I literally watched this pick. I watched him at the combine and literally went right to my phone after he was done testing. Pack your bags, Isaac Guerrero. You are a 49er. And obviously, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch agreed, man.
Yeah, I mean, this one definitely was interesting. I definitely do feel like if Kyle Shanahan could have had him in the third round, he would, but I'm sure that was met with a lot of like disgruntled people in the
Or
draft room.
people
Like,
just grabbing him and holding him back from like running to the phone. It's just like, no, Kyle, no.
because that's exactly what I imagine. And yeah, like Tony Pauline had the tweet that he quickly deleted, saying they got him with their second, fourth round pick. So for them, that's probably a win. And look, I'll say this. I think, yes, we are weary of the 49ers and their history of getting a running back, this early in the draft,
Yep.
and their experience also getting guys later in the draft. Like the guys they've gotten later have hit. And so
And
I think
UDFAs.
exactly. So I think we're wary about this for that reason, or fans are. But I'll tell you what, like obviously Garendo has something that all of the guys that they've picked in the third or fourth round does not have, and that is speed, speed, speed. Like literally when Kyle Shanahan was asked like what he like about Garendo, that's literally the first thing he said. And of course you can see why, as far as like him having the experience in the outside zone as well. That's great. But adding the speed element too, that's something they haven't had since Raheem Mostert, as I mentioned
Oh
at the
yeah.
top of the show. And they need, I mean, imagine that paired with Christian McCaffrey and having that change up and still having the threat of having a home run hitting running back. You know what I mean? I that's what they got with this pick. The one thing that could give people some pause, and Jay, I haven't seen Garendo's tape yet. I just haven't gotten around. He's next on my list, so I'm excited.
Mhm.
But he wasn't the starter for Louisville at any
No,
point.
no
I'll
tread on
say
the
this though,
tires.
if that's a concern for anyone, he's not going to be the
Mhm.
starter for the 49ers either, right? I mean,
No.
obviously, like you got Christian McCaffrey, so he's going to be playing a similar role to what he already had, right? So I think in that sense, it's a natural fit. And man, this might be one of the only guys that'll have Kyle Shanahan actually give Christian McCaffrey a breather.
Mhm.
Like let him take a few snaps off. Okay,
It's
it's
okay,
fine
Christian. It's
because we
okay,
have
Christian. You don't
Garendo.
have to
Yeah,
you don't have to play 99% of the snaps, Christian. Please. Please just take a few plays off.
exactly. So I'm excited about this one, and I can't wait to get into his tape.
Oh, Isaac's tape is a blast, and he had for the first time in his college career over 100 rushing attempts at Louisville, no tread on the tires, while being a grown ass man with that type of speed. Love, love, love this pick. Let's keep it going. And this next pick is one of my personal favorites as well too, because I wanted the 49ers to double up on wide receiver. And to quote the
Awesome.
great Eleanor Roosevelt, America was built on speed. Hot, nasty speed. And that's what the whole crux of this draft is about at every position. All the linemen, short shuttle. Great, great in short spaces. You got guys that can threaten you down the field, 40 speeds, all of those things. Jacob Cowing from Arizona. Now, you look at his size and you probably say, hey, uh, that's a little too small. I would say, let's see Tank Dell and Tyler Lockett, because that's what I see when I watch him play. And I think, again, what makes his route running so special is the threat of his speed. A cornerback is on their heels, falling straight back, and he has the route running chops to stop on a dime, run that comeback, put guys in a blender. Steph, this offense is going to be as explosive as we have ever seen it, and that includes Julio Jones with Matt Ryan and those guys. Remember, Taylor Gabriel, all those guys that you kind of have that are speed demons. Everything is lining up by turning this thing over to Brock, giving him the weapons, giving him the separators. I love these back-to-back picks, not just because of the speed, but I think Jacob Cowing was one of the more underrated route runners in this draft, and he is someone that can be a matchup nightmare. Think about all that speed motion that they run in Miami with Tyreek Hill coming across and then just getting a head start. Think about what you can do with Pearsall. Think about what you could do with Cowing to put immense pressure on these DBs that they'll be facing with Brock Purdy improving. I cannot tell you how much I love this draft and the way that they were going in this direction.
Yeah, I think this pick was a good example of best player available. And yeah, I mean, I was expecting the 49ers to get two receivers out of this draft. And Jacob Cowing this year is your Jawan Jennings replacement, but what he brings is a lot different than Jawan Jennings. And one of the things that Kyle Shanahan mentioned about Cowing was he can run all the routes, makes him similar to Ricky Pearsall in that way that you have a guy who can run a lot of routes. Jawan Jennings, maybe a limited route tree a bit, but Cowing has a speed. He has ability to run all those different routes. And so that gives Kyle Shanahan, some more flexibility on how he can use his slot guy, right? So I think Jacob Cowing is going to fit into that role nicely. And again, it goes into the themes that we're seeing, adding different elements to the one-to-one replacement to these guys, but like new, bigger, like things, just better things about some of these guys. I didn't even say bigger for Cowing because he's obviously size is size is the one limitation with him. But Kyle did say he does play bigger than his size.
Yeah.
Um, And so that's something that you definitely want to see at the next level. So again, Cowing's one of those guys I haven't seen the tape on. He was at the Senior Bowl, so I did see him briefly there. But yeah, I'm excited about this one and just like what he figures to bring to this receiver room going forward.
100%. We got about 10 minutes left, Steph. So, Rob, if you could put up the graphic of all the draft picks, we'll finish the draft out pretty quickly and we'll look at the additions and we'll answer the question. Did the San Francisco 49ers get better this offseason? So, after Jacob Cowan, you've got Jarrett Kingston, offensive lineman from USC, another short shuttle king. One of the faster ones in the entire draft. Again, speed, speed, speed. The absolute way that this team went in this draft. And Tatum Bethune, a second FSU guy, a thumper. If you've ever seen that video of Jaden Daniels getting the Mario coins knocked out of him, that is Tatum Bethune. That is who he is. He's a little bit of a thumper when it comes to that. I think it kind of tells you where they think they are with D. Winters, Jalen Graham. They obviously need to add linebacker depth, as we don't know the status of what Dre Greenlaw is going to be. But before we get into all of the additions and everything, real quick, Steph, your overall graph for this draft.
Grade for this draft. I
Yes.
I gave it a B plus, honestly,
Uh,
and it's because I think this draft did answer the question of did they add enough impact guys? I think I came out of this draft feeling like they did. And not only
mhm.
that, but like, they say the definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I think the 49ers have kind of realized, and I do think the Super Bowl was a big eye opener, is that we can't do the same thing. Like it just did not work for us in that game. We averaged 30 or more points a game in the regular season, but when it came down to it, our guys couldn't get open. We were just lacking some explosiveness on offense, some oomph. They got that. And then also on the defensive side, we've already seen the influence of Brandon Staley in free agency. I think we also saw it with these picks in the draft as well. So I'm really looking forward to the changes that I see them making. Like we're seeing the themes, and I think that's going to be the difference going forward, because it kind of felt like, maybe some teams were getting used to what the 49ers were doing, both on offense and defense. It doesn't help that there's so many Kyle Shanahan offenses now in the
Uh-huh.
NFL. So now like teams have more chances to be able to see it and prepare for what that is. So Kyle Shanahan now changing his approach a little bit, and on defense, obviously changing the approach as well.
Ty Buzz says, Aponte, it doesn't piss you off that the Niners can never have an over the top speedster. Goodwin was the only one ever. Bet money, Lynch wanted Worthy, FKC, Pearsall, and Cowing fit that. They absolutely do. Those are your speedsters. I mean, 441 for Pearsall, a guy who can take off the top from the slot. You already have guys that can win on the outside. I love this draft, honestly. And I don't know if they wanted Xavier Worthy. There's still the concerns about being able to run all the routes. I'm sure that Andy Reid's going to put him in a good spot, but a little bit about what you just said is so true. First of all, I gave this one a B because I didn't want to get overly optimistic. I love this draft though. I gave it a B. But I want to say this. Everyone that runs Kyle's scheme has a different wrinkle. Everyone has
Mhm.
a different wrinkle, right? With the Dolphins, they run what they run, but they have the speed in Waddle and Hill to put pressure on you, and they run it in a different way. The Rams, they run it in a different way. So does Matt LaFleur. So Kyle
Mhm.
Shanahan now is developing a new wrinkle for his own offense, and yet we want to give pushback on that as opposed to maybe we're watching an offense evolving. And you only can evolve when you have the quarterback, which made this draft so interesting. The 49ers, for the first time in how long, went into a draft saying, we know we got our guy. We have our
Yeah.
guy. We're good now. Now, let's build around him. Let's give him all, let's turn the keys over to this guy. How long has it been since the 49ers went into a draft and they said, our quarterback is set? We're going to have this guy for years. And that's what you're seeing here. Now, give him all the weapons. Show the new wrinkles that you want to add to this offense because you have a quarterback that can handle it now. You have a quarterback that you trust, that you can give more, that you have an entire offseason where he's not going to be hurt. And now you're really going to get yourself in a spot where now when you have the Dolphins on the schedule and it's not in a cold weather game, and you're like, damn it, how are we going to slow down Hill and Waddle and all these guys? Or when you see another team and they have all these weapons, the 49ers are in a spot where they have an offense that works. But when you add playmakers and guys that put pressure on the other side, now you're talking about an explosive offense that has a chance to be somehow better than its high level efficient self that it was last year. We got 5 minutes. let's do this, Rob. Make sure you put up this graphic now so we can do additions, everything, in terms of drafts. Okay, additions. Leonard Floyd, gross models. Jordan Elliott, shout out to him, NBC and defensive lineman for the San Francisco 49ers. Can't believe him. Malik Collins, Isaac Yidiam, Devondre Campbell, Chase Lucas, Brandon Parker, Ezekiel Turner, Trent Taylor, Rocky Sin, Eric Salbert, Patrick Taylor, Josh Dobbs. All these additions, a lot of them aren't. I don't think Trent Taylor's making his team. But I do think that it's interesting about Gideon and Rocky Yassin because in tandem with Renardo, you have strengthened your secondary to a point now where you feel good about your coverage one way or another. Again, philosophy change to coverage, not defensive line. You have guys that are going to perform on the defensive line, but now you are in the secondary mode now. This is exactly what we were talking about. Nick Sorensen, secondary guy. Brandon Staley, secondary guy with 2 high safety looks. Now you're absolutely looking at a team that is leaned in to coverage now. And that is, again, changing what they have done, right? Departures, Isaiah Oliver, Charlie Warner, Cleveland Farrell, Javon Kinlaw, Sam Darnold, Eric Armstead, Matt Pryor, Ray McLeod. In tandem with this draft class and your UDFAs, shout out to the Nepo babies, Tariq Owens, Cody Schrager, Drake Nugent, who I think that's another one, short shuttle king from Michigan. Evan Anderson, a guy who can really make an impact, I think, is going to push for a spot on this team. Mason Pline, who, shout out to Steph, was all over that. Actually had an interview with him. Make sure you guys go check that out on her channel. Tanner Mordecai, Brazen Mays, Jalen Mahoney. Honestly, man, if you're asking me, gun to my head right now, did the 49ers get better this offseason? I absolutely 100% think they do. They have strengthened the secondary. They have strengthened the receiver depth, and they are trusting their quarterback to make sure that this offense works. And why wouldn't you? Sorry, long-winded. Go for it, Steph.
The only thing we didn't mention in this show, and I think we kind of saw the themes in this draft as well, is special teams. I did mention it with Malik Mustafa, but I think guys who have the ability to return as well, or could be intriguing with the new return rules, they got a number of different options there that I would be really excited about. So that's another element to it too that I think immediately got better in this draft. And, really the only glaring impact guy that is hard to replace, obviously, Eric Armstead, right? I think they're going to go forward with a committee to kind of fill that gap of Eric Armstead. But I think we've been mentioning that clearly the emphasis going forward is going to be on the secondary. So if that's going to be better, and if they feel like that's going to be the key for their defense going forward, then maybe the departure of Eric Armstead is not as big of a deal as maybe it could have been a year or two ago, right? So I think, I'm looking forward to the new wrinkles on both sides of the ball and special teams as well. So I am optimistic about this draft, and I think the B plus and the B you gave Jay is right on the money.
So to put a bow on this, first of all, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, get your Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcast. Follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. Make sure you visit goldstandardniners.com. But to put a bow on this, did the 49ers get better this offseason? You're fucking right they did. And don't let anybody tell you that they didn't. That's it. Bleep it out, Rob. For Steph, for Jay, we're out of here.
Peace.